and welcome to Schmidtless Live, the show meant to inspire leaders in design and technology. I'm Kurt Schmidt, president at Foundry, and today I'm really excited because I've got one of my good friends, Ann Steiner from C Prime, on to talk about Agile. Well, what comes after we're Agile? Who knows? I don't know. Ann's going to tell us. I don't know. We're going to figure it all out. But before we jump in, I just want to make a quick note that at Foundry we are hiring. So if you want to check out foundrymakes.com/careers, we're looking for a variety of roles. If you're interested, go and check it out. So today I want to talk to Ann. Ann, how are you doing? How's things over there? And where are you at? You're in South Minneapolis?
Yeah, Northeast Minneapolis, Kurt. And
Oh,
since
Northeast.
you're on
Okay.
the
Sorry.
topic,
More breweries.
yeah, more breweries. I want to note that C Prime is also hiring. So anyone
Oh,
who's
yeah.
listening that's got great product coaching chops or technical coaching chops that wants to transition maybe from being on that product team, but to helping other product teams be great,
Awesome.
give us a shout because we'd love to have you join us.
Cool.
Um,
Tell us
yeah,
about C
more
Prime.
breweries, Kurt.
What's C Prime? What do you do there? What do I go to C Prime for?
All right. Well, my gig at C Prime is I'm the vice president of product agility. And C Prime in general, we do a lot of different things. C Prime is a full service consultancy. But in my corner of C Prime's little world, what we do is we help teams make software in a better way. Primarily software products, but not necessarily only software products. And we do that by helping them, in short, to blend product thinking, product practices, an agile mindset, agile methodologies, and then modern software engineering practices and use of technology and tools that's going to all, blend together in a great concoction of continuous product learning.
So if I, in today's world, right, we've heard about digital transformation for years, and it's been going on for years. And a lot of companies have started to implement Agile. You've been a part of a lot of really big Agile implementations, a lot of people moving tools and technologies and things like that. So I feel like in today's world, it isn't such a new thing for a lot of organizations. And what I wanted to ask you about, Ann, is because you've been a part of those implementation squads, as it were, for a lot of organization, what happens? What have you seen? What are the opportunities that happen after they start adopting these practices? What are some of the opportunities? What are some of the pitfalls as they start to grow in maturity in using Agile as their design and development methods?
Yeah, sure, Kurt. I think to kind of come to your question, it would help if we step back a little bit. And if you go back to the late 90s and the Agile Manifesto gathering and the 5 to 10 years that followed that, when we talked and thought about Agile, we thought of it as an iterative methodology. And so during that time, a lot of companies, and we experienced that in our companies, Kurt, they implemented an iterative methodology. And so that gave us mechanics, it gave us ceremonies, it got us starting to work in smaller pieces. In the more sophisticated of those things, we adopted what was then called extreme programming technical practices, and today is called DevOps in a lot of spaces.
Yep.
But we didn't even always do that. During that time, our focus was on process. Then later, we started to get the agile processes. So we just tried to turn that crank faster and faster. And our focus became on optimization
Mm-hmm.
and progress. And sometimes that was great and it made us better.
Yep.
Sometimes it actually led to the wrong outcomes because we were focusing on the wrong thing and we were building cruddy stuff faster. But today, as an industry, as a market, most of the people I work with, we're kind of past that point. And now we're thinking about, we built this really cool machine. But what we feed to that machine is more important than the machine itself. So are we building the right thing is really what agility means now,
Mm-hmm.
mixed with when we find out the answer is no, how quickly can we adjust and can we change? And that change isn't just about realizing you should change. That change is about choosing to change. Because when I hear a client say, well, we got a roadmap for the next 5 years, so I'll queue that up for year 6. That's not agility, Kurt.
Yeah.
And when I hear a client say, well, I got 24 sprints already backlog in Jira, so I'll queue that up in sprint 25. That's not agility, Kurt.
No.
So I think agility, now what, or agile, now what? I have given up using the word agile, which is hard as someone who works in the agile space.
Right.
I will only use the word product or agility now. And to me, agile is a methodology, and agility is the ability to pivot and maneuver based on market needs.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about too, Anne, is the nomenclature side of it. Obviously, you and I worked in software for a long time. You've been a developer in the past. You now are a consultant. Nomenclature is really important when it comes to these transformations, right? I mean, understanding the difference between saying we're lean or we're using bus DevOps and all these different things that I can put a label on. If I can put a label on, I can either charge money for it or I can get paid money for it or things like that, right? And so to your point, why is it so important that we move away from saying agile and talking about it in the sense of the product itself?
Yeah, and I think as agile people, agile coaches, we're really good at nitpicking words. So part of me wants to answer your question and say the words don't matter, the actions are what matter. And then part of me thinks words are really important. But if there's a leader listening right now, the message I really want you to take from this is lead in terms of thinking of three dimensions. You want to think of progress. How fast are we going? How much can we do? But don't just think of that. That's one of the big traps. Also, blend with thinking and measuring progress. I want to measure resiliency and the technical health of my application, and I want to measure the impact that our product is having on our customers, our market, and our users.
Hmm.
When you blend those three things together, you're going to be very balanced, and you, in the end, will get to agility. But if you're just focused on progress, David Hussman used to always use this metaphor. It's just like shoveling one pile of gravel from one place to another. It
It's still
doesn't mean
gravel.
that's necessarily going to have an impact. Yeah, you're just shoveling.
You're just moving things from one side to the other. Well, and that's where, and even I struggle sometimes too. I catch myself because as a business owner, I want things to be done, right? So as a decision maker, I need to be able to say, I've completed this thing and I'm moving on to the next thing. And so that mindset is really important that I've found to be able to stay in that mindset of constant experimentation, is that there is no done state. There is just kind of the next step in the ladder. Is that what you're finding as you're going through these coaching sessions, is kind of getting people into that new mindset?
Yes, and I'll tell you, I grapple with the same thing, Kurt, in the business that I run within C Prime. Like we have four tasks on our backlog board right now that are shared between myself and two other people that if we just sat down and knocked them out, it's probably 4 hours of collective work, and it bothers me that we haven't gotten it done because I can raise a big green flag that we finished this project when we have them done. But the reality is that's not the most important thing we should be doing right now. That isn't the thing that has the most impact for our customers and the people we're trying to help. And therefore it sits
Yep.
because progress isn't the most important thing. Impact is.
Right. And measuring that, right? So that's, I think, the other part that I've seen people struggle with is that they'll collect tons of data and they'll collect a lot of these things, but how are they using it to make decisions? Is that part of the consultation you do as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really help companies and teams to identify what their metrics are, to understand that those metrics are going to shift over time depending on the maturity of the market and the maturity of their product itself. And don't just collect the data to collect the data. I was on a team back in 2012, and it was at that time the most advanced team I had ever worked with respect to process, agile mindset thinking, technical DevOps, and analytics. And the interesting thing was we had robust analytics, and we even as a product leadership team, we reviewed them once a week. It was 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon, but we never changed anything based on them. So we had no agility because we did not make the choice to change. And I'll tell you, it isn't a happy ending to that story. Our product got EOL'd and a good portion of us all got fired. And it was because we didn't choose to change based on what we learned.
Well, and I think that's a problem we're seeing and we've seen over the years. I mean, IT's job, I mean, let's just speak in the IT space. IT's job is to keep the lights on, it's to keep things stable. So if you want to come in and start, utilizing these different things, I mean, I'm going to push back against that because my job is to keep things steadied, is to keep things normalized, right? And so changing over to that mindset is very difficult for folks.
I don't know, Kurt. I can be pretty harsh with you, and I kind of enjoy it. So I'm going to respond to that with saying the 1980s called and want your management philosophy back. Um, that is no longer IT's job. And if IT sees itself as status quo and stability being the mark of success, have fun cashing your paychecks while your company's still in business. Um,
I love it.
if we
So,
haven't
but
if we
that's
haven't
my
gotten a hint in the
but that's my
last few
point is like,
months,
you know, you bring in and organizations bring in a place like C Prime, bring in these coaches to come in and help them. I mean, what's usually the first steps that you take in sort of that transformational process? Because I'm guessing you don't come in just to teach Agile from scratch. You're coming in to help people that maybe are already trying to solve the problem themselves and trying to get them over the next hump. What are some of the initial things that you see that you have to address regularly when you're coming into those situations?
we see two different scenarios. We do see some companies coming in from scratch. And in that way, although they're seemingly behind, they have an advantage because they don't have to repeat some of the same mistakes that the rest of us have made for the last 20 years. They can blend it all to begin with. But you're right. The majority of the people that come to us, especially in the product agility space, have been working with agile methodologies, have been working with tech, DevOps, those types of things for a long time. But most of them are still in a situation where they're not getting the promises from Agile that they were promised. They're not
Mm-hmm.
getting that responsiveness. They're not seeing a better return on their investment. And more times than not, I see it's because they're not effectively blending product discovery and product delivery and then choosing to learn.
Okay.
Usually, what we've kind of set up is we've taken an upfront waterfall process and stapled that to an iterative delivery process. So, although we're building and evolving we're building and showing our software in iterations or chunks, and we're more stable from a tech standpoint, we're more releasable,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still going straight on that path that we decided up front when we committed to time, budget, scope. We're not adjusting to the market, and therefore our ability to shift and to pivot is still on a very long cycle time, just like when we were in waterfall. So what we really do at C Prime is help to bring more to blend discovery and delivery, to bring those together, and then to get them seeing I can learn quickly, I can adjust quickly, and bring that whole cycle time together. I like to call that mean time to pivot. From the time you put something in the market, then you learn and you put the next thing in the market that was that adjustment. I would say most clients that we start with have a mean time to pivot that's really around a half year or maybe a full multiple years.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see clients get to a mean time to pivot that looks more like a quarter or even a couple months,
Sure.
because that's what agility looks like. And another question people ask us all the time: well, how do you measure agility? We want to measure our agile maturity.
Yes.
Start measuring mean time to pivot. I don't care if you have stand-ups or whatever. Like, if I went to Foundry, I could maybe nitpick you guys' ceremonies and stuff.
Oh,
It
you
doesn't
could.
mean you're good or bad. It just, what I would really look at if I want to see if Foundry had awesome agility, what is their mean time to pivot? And I bet in your organization, it's probably days.
Well, yeah, and that's, but again, goes back to that sense of scale and then understanding the vision from the top down, right? Because I think that's another spot where I see where it's more mid managers and things bringing in these things to hopefully make those things. But if they don't have, I mean, how important is executive sponsorship in all of this?
Executive sponsorship means everything. And to me, there's two levels of executive sponsorship. There's an executive standing up and saying, yeah, I'm down with this agile stuff, go do it. And then there's an executive standing up and saying, I'm down with this agile stuff and I'm here to help you and I'm going to live it. And if there's something that's getting in your way, please tell me and I will fix it. Because for years and years and years, we've focused our transformation efforts at the team level, and you will get
Right.
some benefits there. But actually, the hardest place to transform is the middle layers. It's where we have that scale you spoke to. It's where we have cross-team product discovery. It's where we have middle management, and a lot of those leaders are like, "Whoa, what does this mean to me? Because my picture ain't on the Scrum picture." And I'm getting to the point now where when I go into a gig, I don't worry too much about the team level. I'm going up to that next level and
Hmm.
starting there.
Yeah. To make sure they've got the support that they need to actually have the impact that they want to have, right?
And executives, the things that are going to land on your plate really quick in terms of ask for help are going to be things like your funding model, are going to be things
That was
like
my next
having to
question.
commit to scope. Yeah, right out of the gate, getting to, hey, let's get to more of an investment-based funding model where I'm going to say I'm going to put this many poker chips on this product line and this many poker chips on that product line, versus saying I have this project, tell me how much it'll cost, and gosh darn it, don't be wrong. Um, that's
Right.
not
Well, because
that's
that's
not
the
going to
thing
get
is
you
that
to the
we've
filler.
seen that in innovation teams and other places, right? Is that they're the way that they finance innovation and these types of new initiatives is not in line with what the transformation needs to be, right?
Right.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
find
and I
that
mean, but
in those things where um, it's the team is more excited about it than the executive leadership, or is it vice versa, or is it a mix every time that you're coming in?
um, that's a great question. This is going to sound awful, but I want to say no one's really excited about it.
Nobody's
The
excited,
executives are like, yeah, we have to do this to survive.
right? It's a
This is the
necessary
right
thing.
business decision to make. Most of the time, the teams are like, oh my God, here comes another doofus agile consultant. What stupid stuff is she going to tell us to do? So we really need to bring the excitement should not be about the transformation. Who cares about another stupid transformation? The excitement should be about being able to work in a way that's going to help us to help our customers more
Hmm. Yeah, be able to
and
be more
improve
responsive, right?
products and things you do. Yeah, and having a little more control of charting your product path and more autonomy. To me, when I first was exposed to Agile, I was like, ugh, this is another processy. Ugh. But when I was exposed to product management and having that opportunity, I was like, this is great. I finally have some control and say and input in our destiny, and I finally can see that I'm helping people.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're on a team and you're separated from the customer, you don't see that.
Well, and I think, and you brought up a good point there that I always have really narrowed in on is the role of that product manager because in organizations there's no standardization for the role. It's all over the place. Sometimes they're more UX, sometimes they're a little bit more project management, sometimes they're a little bit more account manager, sometimes they're more of a dev team lead or things like that. And I think that some of the problems, some of the systemic problems I've seen in product is not a real standardization of the role and responsibilities and the actual ownership and decision making power that those folks have. I mean, in your mind, what should a great product manager's job be on a day to day, week by week basis? I mean, what should their responsibilities really be?
Yeah. They're going to do the following things at different levels of the hierarchy and the product structure. But in short, I think their jobs are to influence. Rarely do product managers ever have any organizational authority over anyone or anything. So they're masters of leading by influence. They need to influence on behalf of their product, their direction, and their strategy. Then they need to advocate. They're going to be advocates for heck, the entire product community, internal stakeholders. They're advocating for funding for their product. They're advocating for sales attention, marketing spend, all of those things. And then lastly, they're deciders. People will be rapid fire. Well, should we go this way? Should we go that way? And the hardest part about being a decider as a product manager is the choices are rarely binary. They're much more complex than that. And there's no clear cut right path.
Yeah.
You never will be able to do everything. You never will have infinite resources. So you always have to make hard choices. One of my colleagues, Devin Anderson, who is one of the best strategic product managers I ever knew. I remember one time I was working for him and he was sitting in his office and I was sitting there with him and he had his head in his hands like this. And we were trying to make some roadmap decisions. And he said, Ann, I'm in a situation right now where I have to decide which of my kids I want to throw out of the lifeboat. And it was so true. It was the perfect metaphor, and his heart was on his sleeve because he really felt that way. So the hardest thing product managers have to do is they have to make hard choices on behalf of the business.
Right. And but that's as you were talking about as a C-level person or a business owner, I mean, that's what you want is somebody in that role that's making those those key decisions and taking on that accountability, right? So if I'm, kind of sidestepping here a second, but I always get the question about people interested in getting into product management as a role. And you mentioned C primes looking for people and things like that. But if I'm in project management or development or design, and I'm interested in this role of product manager, things like that, like what are some of the resources or things I should be looking for if I want to make that career change? What could I do in my current role to help me gain some of that experience? What have you seen work in the past?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, I've never met anyone that said, "Hey, I want to be a product manager when I grow up," and went to college and became a product manager. All of us has come from somewhere else. There's kind of two different paths in the industry: either being a subject matter expertise or a member of the user community that your product serves. So. I used to work for a company that did software for manufacturing engineers. A lot of our product managers were manufacturing engineers. And then the other path, you see a lot of people just come from within the company, the business, the technical ranks, those types of people. And I'm one of those people. I came from the software side. There's pluses and minuses of each. I would say if you're looking to get into product management, you want to have a business mindset. So any type of business classes, things like that can be very helpful. You need to have a certain type of personality. To be a good product manager, you're going to have a thick skin. You're going to get yelled at a lot. You're going to have to be an influencer. You're going to have to be politically savvy, those types of things. But it'll give you great leadership chops. A lot of senior executives have come up through the product management ranks because they have learned those skills of influencing that you need at the highest levels of organizations. I would also say, especially if you're working in a company that is doing a transformation right now, raise your hand and say, "I'm
Mm,
interested in doing this." I don't have not one client that I go to that isn't looking for talented product owners, and also isn't willing to invest in helping someone who really wants to be there be one of those people. And last but not least, shameless plug, Kurt, but we have a bunch of product management classes at C Prime that can give you just a look into what that is from a strategic standpoint, from a tactical standpoint. So come on out to cprime.com,
awesome.
search for product agility, and those will be some opportunities too.
Cool. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think, again, um, the more resources people can do, because again, I see people in that product management role because it isn't like project management necessarily where you have certifications, you have, basically SATs, all that sort of stuff for project management. With product managers, I see a lot of imposter syndrome happening, right? Do you get that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all do. And I think it comes from being a product manager is a very wide stack of skills. Everything from functioning like a C-level executive from a business standpoint and interacting with them, all the way through. In my next meeting, I'm gonna go, write a 3-day user story with the technical lead on something
Right.
that's happening in an API. That is a wide swath,
You're a
and I
leader and a
haven't
doer.
yeah, I haven't met not one person that can do all of those things really, really well. I certainly cannot.
Hmm.
So if you're a person that likes to be challenged and get to do a lot of different things and always have self-improvement, you're going to love this gig.
Yeah.
If you're a person that has to master everything and have complete control, you're going to burn up in this gig.
Right. Well, let's say I'm a leader. I'm listening to Ann talk here, and I feel like our team is doing good. I feel like we're moving the ball down down the chain, right? Or we're getting momentum, but I feel like we could get more. I feel like there's more ROI to be had. I feel like we can streamline. I mean, when is the best time to call in a coach, someone to help with that sort of thing? Like you had mentioned, like a lot of people have maybe already been in it for a while and they need to add to it. But if I'm a leader listening to this, what are some of the key triggers maybe that I might be seeing that it's time for me to bring in some help to help supercharge our system?
Yeah, I'd say anytime is a great time to call in a coach, and really just in a short conversation, we can talk about places that maybe you want to go from great to greater. Maybe you want to make your code base more healthy. Maybe you want to embrace chaos engineering or other cool new stuff like that. Coaching. we've done a disservice to our industry too by making agile coaching be someone who's going to come in and have this feel good session and you're going to throw a squishy ball around and then they'll teach you how to do retrospectives. That's not what coaching is. I mean, coaching can be incredibly specialized. Like, one of the people I respect the most in this industry, David Larrabee. He's one of our technical coaches, our dojo god at C Prime, and he's sitting with clients right now, helping them iteratively embrace a microservices architecture um, in the cloud. So like stuff like that, or having a senior product coach who's been a product manager at the executive level sit and say, okay, let's look at these measures. And it ends up the things that you're measuring are actually all lagging indicators. Kurt, you need to look at something besides Foundry's P&L, because by the time it shows up on your P&L, it's too late. So here's maybe 6 or 7 leading indicators that you could start measuring too. And by the way, you're not bringing the appropriate counter metrics into this. So your system can be gamed very easily, or you may be having negative impacts that you don't realize by trying to push towards that. Let's talk about this type of thing. So coaching can get to very complex, yet very valuable topics deep in this product and technical space.
Yeah. I think that again, it's like my my father always said, right? There's two types of people in the world. There's people who have a coach and people who don't know they need a coach. It's what it comes down to.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe sometimes we're a little bit worried about ego. Like, a
Right.
year or so ago, I started working with an executive coach, and I thought, God, does it make me a bad leader that I have to have an executive coach? Well, maybe I was a bad leader, maybe I wasn't. We could argue about that, but I'm a better leader than I was a year ago,
Hmm.
and I'm very thankful for how that person's helped me.
Yeah, I think it's super important. Again, that no matter how successful or even how unsuccessful you might feel. I mean, having people that you trust that you can reach out to, whether it be externally or internally, is super important to growing as that leader, right? So, one last question, Anne, before I let you go.
Hey,
The
hey, Kurt, before your last question,
yeah,
when we
go
talk
ahead.
about your coach,
I
you
what?
never have to worry about it, right? Because your wife keeps you in line.
Oh yeah. Oh, are you kidding? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the you gotta dress for work, right? You can't just walk around barefooted. Okay, no. One last question. Um, so if I'm let's say somebody on a team in an organization, and I'm not feeling that we're doing agile right, or maybe I'm a developer or designer, and I'm going out and I'm reading about the ways that these people are. I'm reading all these amazing Netflix blogs about how they use chaos engineering and all these different things, and I'm frustrated with my organization and I want them to get better. What would be your advice to those people? Quit and find a new job, or
Definitely not quit and find a new job, because you're not going to find anyone that's doing Agile perfectly. Um, my first thing would be, why do you care about doing Agile right? So I would dig a little deeper into it of, are we getting the outcomes from a thing that we should be getting? And if the answer is no, how could we get to those outcomes?
right?
I get really frustrated. Sometimes people come to me and they go, oh, my team does daily stand-ups wrong. Every morning we do it in Slack instead of standing together. And I said, yeah, but do you know what the outcomes of a daily stand-up should be? And they'll sit there and they think, because sometimes we just memorize the rule book, right? And the rule book says we have a daily stand-up in the last 15 minutes, and we're all looking at each other. But the outcomes are meant to be that at least once a day we collaborate, we talk to each other, and we surface issues. We could do that on Slack. The chaos engineering example, the point of chaos engineering isn't that every team writes 5 chaos tests in a sprint. The point of chaos engineering is that the idea of trying to truly replicate production environments isn't always practical anymore. So instead of trying to replicate production environments in QA and to try to confirm that we're perfect before we shift from QA to prod, how about instead we assume that we won't be perfect, but we test for and enhance our resiliency or our ability to recover after a fault. And that's what chaos engineering does, is it tests that resiliency.
Right.
So I would tell your designer, your friend, think about the outcomes. If your team's getting to the outcomes a different way, then it doesn't matter. If your team's not getting to the outcomes a different way, don't present as we're doing Agile wrong. Present as I think we should be getting to this, but we're not. How could we get to this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking goals and impact, right? And
Mm-hmm.
not just
Mm-hmm.
process and structure and you
And
know
rules.
and
Yep.
rules, right? Well, and I mean, again, I mean that's software. To your point, if you're going to have the your system isn't infallible, so why pretend that it is? And why not be on the offensive, right, instead of constantly on the defensive? And so that's why, yeah, and I like your perspective on how you explained, chaos engineering there, because I think you can do that. You don't have to follow some crazy Netflix methodology just to make that happen. I mean, you can tippy toe into those waters, right?
Right, right.
And try and see if it makes sense. Okay, Anne, I know you're busy, so I want to let you go. And but before you take off, if I want to know more about the classes C Prime offers, the consulting that you offer, where can I go and find more information?
Yeah, so definitely check us out on the internet, cprime.com. And we have just a ton of resources up there. You'll see it in the resources menu, and lots of information about this product stuff, metrics that matter in the boardroom, dojos, all that stuff. So definitely check out cprime.com and feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn too. I'm Ann Steiner out on LinkedIn and would love to connect with y'all.
That's great, and thank you again so much.
Thank you, Kurt.
I
It's been a
appreciate.
pleasure.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so before we go, I just need to mention one more time: foundermix.com/careers. We are hiring. Come back next week. I've got a ton of new people showing up. We're going to be talking about all things to help you as a leader kind of grow in your career. Or if you're out of work right now, we're going to be doing a lot of content around how to help people find jobs, how to do virtual networking, how to improve your resumes, how to find those key hiring managers to help you get that next job or just a job. So subscribe to the channel if you like the content today, and only if you like the content, and hit the like button because it always helps us out here. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you. We'll talk soon.